Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at a very interesting pick for the Open Great League, and that is Kangaskhan. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Mark Pogo, so many thanks for the battle submission. Kangaskhan is a pure normal type with the moveset of Mud Slap, Power Up Punch, and Crunch. Now, Mud Slap not getting the same type attack bonus is unfortunate, but it does have the ability to boost up its attack with the Power Up Punch. I'm unsure as to whether this is going to be a worthwhile Pokemon for climbing. I've never used it before, so I'm excited to see what it can do here. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Kangaskhan in the Open Great League. Off to a bad start in the first match, leading into a Shadow Dragonite. Here's a save switch to Toxapex. Opponent responds with a switch out into Dunsparce, and oh my goodness, are you happy to bait this out so it's not on the Talonflame. Just gonna go straight for the Brine right at the start. You are going to need two moves as the Toxapex anyway. Toxapex is more than happy to absorb Drill Runs here. Drill Run, that does do a solid amount of damage. We will see the No Shield. The second one will not be enough to knock out, however. So we are going to see a survival and the ability to make it to a Sludge Wave. Now, Sludge Wave will inflict some serious damage onto the Dunsparce, but the Dunsparce takes it on 1 HP. Oh, that is so unfortunate. In comes Kangaskhan to get the Mud Slap down. But this Dragonite is going to be an issue. Kangaskhan farming up opponent. Looks like they did throw on alignment there, so Kangaskhan is able to get a free fast move. But its fast moves are not doing a lot. We're going to see the opponent making a catch onto a Superior. They catch the Power Up Punch, but this is their lose con. In comes Talonflame. Talonflame going to absolutely melt through this Superior and get to exit with a ton of energy to threaten the Dragonite. The opponent, had they stayed in, they could have potentially been in a winning position, but now they've put their Dragonite in a position to fail, as the Dragonite, after it re-enters the field, will immediately be met with Double Fly. They aren't going to get a lot of fast moves in, only one Dragon Breath per fly, and then once the second move is thrown, switch timer's up, Mark can switch to the Kangaskhan and make it to a Crunch. So in comes Kangaskhan, able to get to the Crunch. Crunch does not get same type attack bonus, but it's going to be enough with a Mud Slap to knock the Dragonite down and take the win. Great lead in the next match, Kangaskhan versus Clodsire. Opponent is going to switch out into Dunsparce, and oh my goodness, do they not have a response to Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan going to go for the Power Up Punch. This will do almost no damage, but that's not the goal. The goal is the extra damage you're going to get from the Mud Slaps. This is Power Up Punch number 2. Opponent still opting to No Shield. Let's see how much damage these Drill Runs do, so we can kind of test the bulk of Kangaskhan. So Kangaskhan, we're actually going to see a switch out now into the Toxapex, preserving that Kangaskhan for later. The Drill Run will hit for super effective damage. Opponent is going to save the Dunsparce, and back in comes Clodsire. So the goal here being to try and bait back out the Clod, so that way you can neutralize it with the Kangaskhan, and hopefully Talonflame will be able to do well in back. Toxapex, definitely going to be no shielding here. It is going to be the Earthquake. That does massive damage, but they don't get the farm down. A final Brine is reached, and this is some very nice damage onto the Clod. Switch timer's up. In comes Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan choosing to let this go. Going to save 2 shields for the Talonflame. Stone Edge is going to pick up the knockout. Fully waiting the timer here. Mark is still going to be switch locked for about the next 30 seconds or so. In comes the Talonflame. Talonflame is going to have to shield once, but already has 60 energy, and that energy can go far against a lot of Pokemon. In comes the Dunsparce. Dunsparce is going to be hit with a Flame Charge, so Talonflame looking to boost up its damage. We're going to see a switch and a catch to catch the move onto the Toxapex. Very nicely done. Catching the Rock Slide. Back in comes the Talonflame. Talonflame gets the farm down. Talonflame really has to hope that whatever's in back is not going to have a lot of fast move pressure, and it's Superior, and Talonflame looking to try and sweep. The Fly is shielded, making it to Fly number 2, and this will inflict some serious damage. I believe Superior can hang on here, but not well. Superior tanked it on 1 HP. Clodsire gets farmed down. The opponent realizes they have no way of getting rid of the Talonflame, and they will concede the match. Picking up a pretty decent lead in the next match, Kangaskhan versus Unova Stunfisk. Mud Slaps, of course, hitting for super effective damage. Opponent firing off their energy as soon as they get the move. They will go for the Mud Bomb. Kangaskhan, of course, has Mud Slap, but is not itself a ground type, which means that it's unfortunately still going to be taking fast move pressure from the Thunder Shocks. Opponent farming up a ton of energy. They send in Jumpluff, and we're going to see a counter switch into the Toxapex. Save switching a Jump Pluff with the Unova Stunfisk lead to me feels like a Talonflame bait out, so I do like the decision here to send in the Toxapex, because that way you preserve that Talonflame for later. Talonflame can't really do much against the Unova Stunfisk, so it definitely feels like the opponent might be trying to lure it out. We do see a defense drop from the Energy Ball, Toxapex farming to 100, going for the Sludge Wave. Sludge Wave is going to be shielded. Now that its defense has been debuffed, Energy Ball might actually pick up the knockout. We are going to see the shield. It is going to be the Energy Ball from the opponent. Toxapex farming up, going for the Sludge Wave, losing the CMP tie. This is just an Aerial Ace, so it will not be enough to knock out, but it will still do some pretty solid damage considering Toxapex's defense is at -1. Sludge Wave will pick up the knockout. Opponent can get some very good farm with the Stunfisk, as unfortunately Toxapex is unable to get to a move. In comes the Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan knows it can take any one move, as the charge attacks from Stunfisk do not hit very hard neutrally. Do you just let this go and try and sweep with the Talon? It looks like the answer is yes. In comes the Talonflame. Talonflame going to be met with a Drifblim in the back, and this is where having that extra fast move of advantage is very, very helpful. The opponent behind on energy, forced to try and make a call, and that's just not going to work. This is going to be the Icy Wind. We are going to see a shield and the full Incinerate down, because even at -1, that will be enough to KO. In comes the Stunfisk. Stunfisk gets incinerated down as well, and they're unable to get the move. We've got a battle of Mud Slappers in the next match, Kangaskhan versus Gastrodon. Now, this is where not getting same type attack bonus is going to be unfortunate, because if you look, Kangaskhan is a lot lower than the Gastrodon is at this moment. Crunch is fired off on the CMP tie. That's going to be no shielded by the opponent. This is enough for the Earth Power. Kangaskhan decides to commit the shield and gets it right, as it is the Earth Power. There's a switch out into Goodra. Goodra immediately going to be hit with a Crunch to look to get some chip damage before Toxapex will hit the field. We do see a Crunch debuff as well. Toxapex can do absolutely nothing against Gastrodon, so I like the play of sending it in here and basically just fully letting it get as low as possible before you knock out the opponent. The opponent fires off a second Thunder Punch. That's very okay. You just want to limit the amount of free farm that you're giving to that Gastrodon. And Toxapex basically gets itself down to just a few HP remaining. Sludge Wave is going to deliver a knockout, but they don't send in the Gastro. They send in Talonflame, and Talonflame up energy is going to be very scary. Mark brings in his own. The opponent farming up. The opponent now at 100 energy. Mark going for a bait here with the Flame Charge. That's going to be shielded. There's a switch out into the Kangaskhan. The opponent should go for an undercharge here and a farm down, but they don't. That's a huge mistake from the opponent. The opponent is now one off of their move, but Mark does have the fly here. So as long as they don't switch, he can go for the fly, and this is going to do some pretty significant damage. Fly is not going to pick up the knockout. The opponent tanked it on 1 HP. Oh, that is unfortunate for Mark. The opponent barely hanging on and able to take the win. The troublesome lead is back, leading into Shadow Dragonite. We see the save switch into the Toxapex. Shadow Dragonite can actually do pretty okay against Toxapex. Shadow Dragonite is super frail, but his damage output is absolutely unreal. Like, look at this. The Toxapex is already deep into the red, and once the Toxapex is out of the way, Dragonite, very uncomfortable for this team to deal with. Dragonite is going to get a full farm down. Something is going to have to take the energy. Mark decides it's going to be Talonflame. Talonflame going to be shielding up the first. He's basically gambling that Talonflame energy is going to sweep this back line. We see a double shield on the Talonflame, full committing that Talonflame will be able to sweep. The opponent going to send in Togetic. Togetic does have access to Ancient Power. Ancient Power would hit for double super effective damage. The opponent not going to throw just yet in the back. It's going to be Annihilate, and this unfortunately should just be game over. The opponent should be able to take this win. Crunch is going to hit for neutral damage. The opponent does commit the shield there, and they actually end up throwing, which again, most people aren't familiar with Kangaskhan, so they're not going to know the counts and whatnot, but they do get to boost up their attack. Back in comes the Talonflame. Talonflame, you have to try and double up and hope, but I honestly don't know who wins cap here. We are going to see, tried to go for it, anticipating a potential snipe, but the opponent did not go for it there. Exiting with the fly. Who wins the cap tie? And it's not Togetic. Togetic didn't throw the move. Fly into the Togetic, does not KO, and for the second game in a row, a 1 HP survive from the opponent. Absolutely tragic stuff there. We now move to set number 2. Looks like we got some daytime battles and a pretty decent lead, Kangaskhan versus Shadow for Alligator. Due to the normal subtyping, Feraligatr, of course, going to have basically 0 fast move pressure. Opponent does throw on 6. Kangaskhan will happily take that free fast move, and now Kangaskhan will look to return fire with the Crunch. Crunch into Feraligatr. Do we see the shield? No, we do not, and Kangaskhan is able to get the full farm down. In comes Dragonite. Dragonite, such a problem Pokemon for this team, but Kangaskhan able to grab a shield with the Crunch and now set up the Toxapex to do very well here and hopefully sweep with the Talonflame versus whatever their third Pokemon is. Opponent will fire off the Dragon Claw. This is survivable for the Toxapex, but it does leave a mark. Toxapex going to be hit with another Dragon Claw, and now we will see the first shield of the match. The opponent is getting pretty close to Brine range on that Dragonite. Nice overfarm by the Toxapex. Brine should be able to pick up the knockout. Is the opponent willing to give up the final shield in this instance? No, they are not. Oh no, it's Sandslash in the back, and the opponent will immediately top left. Trainer, that is so unfortunate. Kangaskhan picking up better leads in set number 2 so far, leading into a Clodsire. Opponent safe switches into Primeape. Primeape answered with the Toxapex. Now this matchup, Primeape is a very scary Pokemon. Being able to spam out these Rage Fists is very, very difficult to deal with, but Toxapex is one of those Pokemon that is very well built to handle this, as you can pretty comfortably get a ton of fast move pressure on the Poison Jabs and pressure shields, or deliver a quite significant amount of damage with Brine. Opponent going to fire off one final charge attack. It is the Rage Fist. Rage Fist not going to do a ton of damage. This is a very awkward health range for the opponent to try and farm down. If the opponent was able to make it to a close combat, then it maybe could have set up farm down range for the Clodsire, but the Clodsire is actually forced to throw, and that is really unfortunate as the opponent. They go for the Stone Edge, which is going to be their cheapest move, but now Kangaskhan re-hits the field of play. In the back, oh no, it's Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres with Ancient Power, a very scary Pokemon. This is one situation where Flame Charge is a must, because you just need to boost up your Incinerates and try and fast move through this Pokemon, because they can shield the charge moves, but they can't shield boosted Incinerates. Talonflame forced to give up the final shield as this Moltres just seems to be running away with the game. Going to try and go for the farm down, can't get the farm down, forced to go for the fly. Maybe could have thrown one in the flame charge and then picked up the knockout. Back in comes the Kangaskhan as the opponent sends in the Clodsire. Kangaskhan going for the Crunch, just looking for the damage in this moment. Opponent is going to commit the shield. How much damage is an Earthquake going to do? Can Kangaskhan hold on here? Opponent goes for the Earthquake. Kangaskhan survives. Kangaskhan looking for the Crunch and gets to the Crunch, and that should be game winning. This just does too much damage. The opponent can't farm down. One more Mudslap from Kangaskhan, and that's a good game. Kangaskhan into Dunsparce. Pretty decent lead overall, I would imagine. Of course, it is going to be a battle of neutral damage, neither Pokemon getting same type attack bonus, but the Power-Up Punch will hit for super effective damage, and I imagine should hopefully give Kangaskhan the edge the more shields that are in play. Dunsparce goes for the Drill Run. That does do a pretty solid amount of damage. Oh, the Talonflame safe switch gets Toxapexed. Now this matchup actually can get quite uncomfortable for Toxapex if the Talonflame is up energy, which they are. Talonflame, oh, just goes for the Brave Bird right away. I was going to say, if you go straight Fly and you're up an Incinerate, I believe Talonflame can win the 2s, which is quite scary. But here, since they did go for the Brave Bird, that does a ton of damage, but now they're in danger of just getting fully jabbed down. We will see the shield from the Toxapex. Toxapex not going to risk the Talonflame getting to another move, just opting for the Brine. The opponent chooses to let it go and will instead try and go for farm on the Dunsparce. Dunsparce not wanting to take any additional damage, trying to keep itself as healthy as possible, but that's going to cost them throwing a Drill Run. Back in comes Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan now going for the Crunch, just looking for damage. The opponent knows Kangaskhan has Power-Up Punch, so they might not be looking to shield. In the back is Annihilate, and that's going to be swiftly answered with the Talonflame. Oh no, the opponent mistimes it, and that's an entire 20 free energy to the Talonflame. Talonflame gets the back-to-back flies, and that is absolutely tragic if you're the opponent. We do see the shield. It is a cap tie, and this is actually uncomfortable because you do have to shield this, but the Kangaskhan, I think it's going to be in a range for Dunsparce to knock it out with a Drill Run. We're going to see a switch out into the Kangaskhan. The opponent fires their energy. Can the Talonflame survive the rollouts? Will an Incinerate KO here? And it does. Oh my goodness. I did not think that game was going to end in victory, but Mark was able to find a way. We move to the final match, and Kangaskhan is absolutely getting rewarded with these good leads in set number 2, leading into a Clodsire that is staying in. We're Rather than looking for the extra damage from Power Up Punch, gonna go for the harder hitting Crunch and gets a defense drop anyway, so that really ended up working out. Kangaskhan can take any one move. Opponent goes for the Sludge Bomb. They do end up throwing Sludge Bomb number 2 on alignment, so Kangaskhan can just one shield farm down here. Exit with energy. Opponent is gonna switch into the Primeape, and Primeape unfortunately getting hit with the Toxapex yet again. These Rage Fists, not scary at first, but getting a Rage Fist every 8 turns is just absolutely unbelievably good pacing. Rage Fist after Rage Fist is going to connect. Very nice overfarm here, again throwing 3 in the move, throwing the brine right before the opponent is able to get that energy. Opponent has farmed up a ton. Will they go for the double boosted close combat here? It does a lot more than a Rage Fist. No, they go for the Rage Fist. It does not KO. Now is the opponent going to go for a double shield and a karate chop farm down? No, they let the Primeape go. That's a bit of a surprise. In comes the Clodsire. We're going to see a switch out into Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan going for the Power Up Punch. Power Up Punch is going to be shielded by the opponent. Kangaskhan does get the Mud Slap through, and Mark is committing to the Kangaskhan. Shielding it up in the back is Feraligatr, and let's see this damage. This is a +1 Crunch. Massive damage onto Feraligatr. Feraligatr fires off its charge attack at the last second, but Kangaskhan already dealt with 90% of its health. There is still the Talonflame. 2 Incinerate should KO, which means the opponent is not going to make a move. Sending in the Talonflame. Talonflame gets the farm down, and the opponent, they just don't have enough health left on the Clodsire, and that is a good game. And now that we've looked through all the battles, I'm going to take a stab at answering the question that I posed in the intro, which is that, is Kangaskhan worth building, and is it worth using in the Great League? First, I'll kind of start with the pros and the cons. The pros are, being a Mud Slapper that has a normal subtyping honestly gives Kangaskhan a bit of an interesting niche. There's a lot of Shadow Claw users out there, and being able to just completely nullify their damage is very valuable. In addition, having Power Up Punch, very helpful because you can continually boost up your damage, and in situations where a lot of shields are up, that can make Kangaskhan very scary in matchups where your opponent doesn't have a Mud Slap resist. However, I do think the biggest drawback for Kangaskhan is the lack of same type attack bonus. A lot of the Mud Slappers, like the Gastrodons, the Shadow Marowaks of the world, really rely on overpowering people with that same type attack bonus Mud Slap. And for Kangaskhan, I do think that unless it has thrown a Power Up Punch, the Mud Slaps do end up feeling a little bit underwhelming. So overall, in conclusion, my final review on Kangaskhan, I do think it is an interesting spice pick. It's something that if you're able to pair it with strong teammates and play well, you definitely can get wins with it. But I do think that it does remain a tier below the meta Mud Slappers like Gastrodon and Shadow Marowak. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.